Number one key of being an effective magician. Are you willing to be uncomfortable? It is very, very uncomfortable to live a life of integrity. Doing the easy thing, doing the comfortable thing, that's usually doing what other people want. It's living according to society's expectations. It's living according to your past trauma and past patterns. And if that's life you want, that's fine, right? Go ahead and be comfortable. You can just be really, really comfortable with all of your choices and all of your decisions. And I really believe when we choose the life of the magician, eventually we get to be really comfortable and it gets to feel really good most of the time. But to get there, and even when living the life of a magician in integrity, and by the way, a magician in integrity is an effective magician, and we're going to talk about that. It really takes uncomfortable actions and uncomfortable decisions. It is not comfortable to say no to someone that you really love, who completely has your best interest in mind and just loves you so much and wants to spend time with you. But sometimes we need to say no to the people that we love in order to put ourselves first, and in order to do our practices, and in order to stay integrity to ourselves and our word. Or, people are often used to seeing us in a certain way, especially people we've grown up with or our friends, or even current friends and current acquaintances. Really people see us the way that they want to see us because it's an advantage to them. And, especially if we've in the past been like people pleasers, or if we've always capitulated to them, then yeah, people really want us to continue those behaviors. And by the way, these aren't even bad people. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that they're accustomed to us acting in a certain way. And it's uncomfortable to be like, you know what? I'm different now. This is who I am now. But, it's like we can either be comfortable and continue living according to someone else's lie and someone else's ideas, or we can be uncomfortable and make decisions for ourselves. Or, it's uncomfortable to go onto Instagram Live and to teach on the thing that you're really passionate about, even when 0 people are showing up and nobody's watching the video. It's uncomfortable to put yourself out there, to be visible, to create a course. It's uncomfortable. Life is not necessarily comfortable. Doing the things we love. I think that this is something that the love and light community and like New Age is really kind of confused, because they're like, oh, do the thing that like you feel so drawn to, that feels so good to you. And yes, I believe it ultimately feels good to us. Like it ultimately feels good to us to live a life of authenticity and integrity. But there's a lot of uncomfortable experiences and decisions, just because being in integrity, when we've been out of integrity or not connected to our souls our whole lives, that's uncomfortable actually. Or, making the decision to really make ourselves visible and to really follow our hearts and to do what we want to do and be who we want to be, that's really uncomfortable. you know it's really uncomfortable to make unfamiliar decisions. The unfamiliar is uncomfortable. Even if the unfamiliar, let's say, is receiving a bunch of money or being wealthy or doing work we really love. Even if we love it, even if it's for our highest good, even if we know in our souls it's the right decision, even if it's an intuition, probably honestly, especially if it's an intuition, it's uncomfortable. And I want to say too that when you're feeling discomfort, and by this I mean authentic discomfort, because I just want to get into this for a moment, which is that like, there is the discomfort of an authentic no, and that's uncomfortable. Or, we're uncomfortable when someone's being kind to us, or, we're often uncomfortable when we have an intuition that someone's, doesn't have our best interests at heart. And we're like, ooh, I feel uncomfortable around this person, but I'm not sure why. Obviously, that discomfort is not what I'm talking about here. That's the kind of discomfort to listen to and to exit the situation as soon as possible. What I mean by being uncomfortable is, again, when we feel that intuition, when we know it's the right choice, when we know it's our next step and our next level and our next period of growth, and we feel uncomfortable. And really, I find that we're often uncomfortable when we're growing. And again, this is like, it really requires a lot of discernment to be like, is this the right discomfort? Again, not the discomfort of, I don't feel safe here. We're still safe, but the discomfort of, oh, I'm growing and that doesn't feel comfortable. or, I'm in an unfamiliar situation and that doesn't feel comfortable. So actually, I would really challenge you when you're learning, when you're taking different courses or you're learning different things or you're taking action, to really ask yourself, is this comfortable or am I on my edge of growth? Am I moving out of my comfort zone into the stretch zone, not going to the danger zone? Like the danger zone is too far, but in my stretch zone, am I in my stretch zone right now? And am I uncomfortable? And when you're uncomfortable, that's when you're growing. And honestly, that's when you're creating results. If you feel really comfortable, if you're like, okay, I've done this action before, I feel comfortable, I'm not taking any risks. Honestly, if you're not taking any risks at all, and again, I'm talking about like some internal risks of internal growth or being seen in a new way, not really big risks, not risks on our lives or anything, just like risks more to our egos or to our comfortable sense of selves. And it's like, if when you feel uncomfortable, that's when you're growing and that's when you're on your edge of growth. When you feel uncomfortable with how big you are, that's when you're on your edge of growth. When you feel uncomfortable because you're in a new action or you're taking new action or you're experiencing new ideas, that's when you're on your edge of growth and that's when you're actually going to create results. So in this way, feeling uncomfortable can actually be a sign of growth and actually be a sign that you are creating new results. And honestly, if you don't feel uncomfortable, it's unlikely that you're creating new results. And that's okay. I mean, if you don't want to create new results, that's fine. But if you're here and if you really want to be an effective magician who gets to live the life that you want and gets to live the life that you desire, and you have not created that life yet, then it's time to start feeling uncomfortable. It's time to do some things that feel uncomfortable, take a course in a subject you've never taken before, talk to someone you've never talked to before, take an action you've never taken before, take an action over and over again that you've never taken over and over again before, say something that you've never said before. And again, moving to the stretch zone, we don't have to go so far beyond our comfort zones that we feel genuinely unsafe, but just getting to that place where we feel a bit uncomfortable and we're like, wow, I'm experiencing something new. And when we're experiencing something new, when we're a bit uncomfortable, that's when we're growing, that's when we're creating new results, and that's when we're actually creating the life of our dreams. And honestly, it doesn't stop. I mean, even when you become an effective magician, in order to continue to be an effective magician, we still got to do some uncomfortable things, like this life is not a life where we're just supposed to like be comfortable. I mean, if we were just supposed to like be comfortable all the time, then we would all just like sit all the time and do nothing. And I mean, that would be pretty boring, right? Like it's actually more exciting and more fun to do uncomfortable things. So, I encourage you to go ahead and do something uncomfortable. What's something that you've been like, oh, I really want to do that, but I can't do it because, well, what would this person think of me? Or because that's not who I am. And it's like, really? I mean, it's again, as long as it's in your authentic physical safety zone and as long as your intuition is saying yes, you can really trust yourself. And it's really about letting yourself feel uncomfortable, giving yourself permission to feel uncomfortable, and knowing that when you feel uncomfortable, you're growing. And honestly, if you don't feel uncomfortable, it's unlikely that you're growing, and it might not actually be a useful action for you to take if your goal is growth and your goal is creating new results. So, yes, what would it be like to do something a bit uncomfortable and to see where that takes you and to be really on your edge of growth? That's when you start to become an effective magician.